Stacey, there's no mistaking that it's not just your heart, but your body of work that very much is informed by and inspired by his contributions. Talk about doing what he did and what you're doing at a time when the current sitting incumbent American president is seeking to delegitimize the results of election that hasn't happened yet.
It's more than just delegitimizing the results of an election. Donald Trump is trying to rig the future. And one of the things I learned from John Lewis is that your position is not what matters. It's the work that you do. So when I did not become governor in 2018, I didn't have the opportunity to just wallow in my loss. My responsibility is taught to me by John Lewis, and as I was raised by my parents, Robert and Carolyn Abrams, my job was to get to work fixing the issues as I saw them. And I knew that in 2020, the two cornerstone issues for our democracy would be making sure we have a fair election and that we have a fair count in the census. And so I created Fair Fight to fight for voter protection and Fair Count to fight for an accurate census. And what Donald Trump is doing, while he tries to discredit vote by mail, he is attempting to undermine our democracy and the power of the vote. But what he did yesterday to undermine our census has a 10-year lifespan. This is going to cost states money that they need to recover from COVID. Texas will lose $5.5 billion if there's an undercount of undocumented immigrants in the census. Texas will lose $5.5 billion. Florida will lose $3.3 billion. Georgia and Arizona will each lose more than $1 billion. That's real money and real lives that will be harmed. And he's doing it because he knows he's going to lose, and he's doing his level best to burn down the House before he leaves.
And at this point in his presidency, there's no mistaking that he clearly views his mandate as governing only for the people that voted for him, just the optics and the use of federal law enforcement agencies in what he describes as Democratic-run cities, the deliberate effort to deprive the counts in states that are trending away from him and toward Democrats. I've been asking this question of state and federal leaders in Oregon for the last 4 days, and I asked this of you. How do you protect against a president with so much power in his hands and such clear and stated and obvious and sort of declared objectives when it comes to both the mail-in vote, voter suppression, and the census?
Well, first you call for the courage of conviction from both sides of the aisle, particularly Republicans who took the same oath of office to protect the democracy of America, to protect our nation. By undermining the census, this isn't simply about a count. It is how we allocate $1.5 trillion. But it's also how we reapportion political power. And what he's attempting to do with this executive order is blatantly unconstitutional, but it's also a distraction. His goal is not simply to undermine the count, it's to scare people out of being counted. And right now, Latino, Black, and Native American communities are all 10% behind white communities when it comes to being counted by the census. And as I laid out earlier, that's billions of dollars stripped away from those communities at a moment where they desperately need it. And when you think about the right to vote, voter protection is not simply about saying you can vote, it's being able to vote. And what he is attempting to do with the scare tactics around vote by mail, but more importantly, by holding up the HEROES Act, is he wants to undermine confidence in our elections. I look to folks who stood for office to say to them, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. Democracy is not partisan. We may choose our leaders by partisanship, but our system should be nonpartisan. It should serve everyone. And I'm anxious about the silence that I'm hearing. And I think that now is this moment where Governor Rick Scott, now a senator, understands that if Florida loses $3 billion a year for the next decade, that is devastating. Texas, John Cornyn needs to know that he is stripping $5 billion away from his state. We have two folks running for Senate in the state of Georgia, and they need to know that we've just had to cut education by $950 million, and they're going to permanently impair the education of children here in Georgia if they do not step up and say that they're standing for the people of Georgia and not simply for their partisan goals.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.